Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, April 22nd. And today on Reseller Revenue, Facebook group, and Patreon, we're going to talk about the stages of our business. I feel like this is something that comes up a lot, especially with, other sellers that are even like with jewelry, let's say, and they're like, well, how come my store doesn't work that way? How come my sales aren't that way? And I feel like so often we're not comparing apples to apples. We're comparing apples to oranges, and that just doesn't work in any format of business. But we have to remember that a reselling business is a business, and especially if we're operating it full time, and we have to not compare ourselves at all to other people. But if you're going to, make sure that we're in the same stages together, because boy, there's a huge difference. And I love that our group is in all different stages because it represents where everybody's at, where everybody could be, where everybody started. So I think and I learn all the time from people that just started. It happens all the time because they have a different perspective than I do. I'm set in my ways a little bit. You get into your groove and you're just used to certain things. And somebody coming in new may have a whole different outlook on it. So then that gives me a different perspective. So I just kind of wanted to go over the different like stages that we can look at ourselves in business with our reselling, and why it's important to make sure that not only we know what stage we're in, but that we don't try to push ourselves into a stage we're just not yet, because there's nothing wrong with being in the beginning stages. And I really believe that it doesn't always have to do with how long you've been doing it. Um, Sometimes we can just be starting off and grow really fast and grow well, but sometimes we're in a beginning stage for a really long time, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just where we are. But then if you want to be somewhere different, at least you know how to get there, or maybe the steps to take to get to the next stage. So I don't like people. You'll notice that I don't say certain things with my business unless it's just strictly on YouTube, because I don't want you guys to say, well, I must not be doing it right because I don't have sales like that, or I don't have that kind of volume with money, or I don't have those kind of repeat buyers. But it's not the same if you're just getting started or if you're not in the same stage. So the stage one, I believe, is when you're just learning the foundations of your business. You're just putting certain things into place. And this stage can last a really long time. And it doesn't mean you're behind. It's setting yourself up for success for the rest of your reselling business. We're going to look at things like ASP and sell-through rates and things that sometimes we get and we leave behind and we have to go back to. So sometimes we jump to the next stage, and really, I'm only talking about two stages. Basically, we're in our foundational stage and then we've jumped to the next stage. Sometimes there's three. But if you are just setting up your foundations, we're setting up our consistency, we're trying to learn our bookkeeping basics. So I feel like somebody could be having lots of sales, they could consider themselves full time, they could be in year two. And in my opinion, some people need to go back to stage one. Because if we skip stages and we push ourselves into a stage we're not ready for, we're not doing ourselves any favors. So, do you have your listing goal set? Are you meeting them daily, or are you making excuses for yourself and your business? I'm talking to full timers here, not necessarily to people that are supplementing their income or retirees or hobby sellers. This is if you're trying to pull a full time income out of this, we need to have certain goals, whether it's so many hours a day, so many listings a day, so many dollars a day. We need to be meeting our consistency and our goals with our business. Are we really worried about our titles? I know that that's something we talk about all the time, but it's really important. If we aren't really honed in on what works for our niche's title work, and it is different. There's no like, oh, this is totally right, this is totally wrong. But what's working for you when people are trying to find your item, if you don't have it right, they're not going to find your item. So that's a problem. Are we looking at our sold comps correctly? This is something I run into a lot when I do coaching, is how we're price setting. Are we really looking at sold comps? If we aren't getting the information we need that's correct from the sold comps, are we going to things like the research tab? Are we doing what we need to do to ensure the correct price for our items? Are we doing our bookkeeping on a regular basis and understanding our numbers? This is a big no for a lot of people. And by bookkeeping, I don't mean we hurry up and pile it all together for our taxes. That's accounting. Accounting and bookkeeping are different creatures in business. The bookkeeping is the day to day, week to week, month to month. I think it's fine if you do it monthly after you get a good handle on it. Until you are really familiar with your numbers, if you're full time, do it daily if you have to. Do it weekly at least. If you are more advanced, you've been doing this a while, you have a really good idea of your numbers, monthly is fine. But I find when people start the monthly part too soon, they become overwhelmed and then they quit doing it. And that's exactly what we don't want. If you have questions about your bookkeeping, Cheryl's here on the second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 1 o'clock Central Time, and she will help you get set up in bookkeeping. She will answer your bookkeeping questions, and you can ask them in here. You can ask Harry, I think that's swapped. So I feel like accounting is for the IRS, bookkeeping is for us. That's my opinion. And I feel like you have all the resources in the world to know your numbers. If you don't understand them, ask in this call. I think you were just testing me, Harry. Ask your coworkers in here. Somebody will help you get a handle on your numbers. Do not feel like you can't ask. Don't feel stupid. Don't feel, you just keep asking until you understand, because it's really important to know where you're at with your numbers. Are you understanding your promotions, or are you just blindly running promotions? Are you just blindly running promoted listing rates because that's what it's telling you to do? If you are, we need to understand that better, and everybody's is going to be different. I have hesitated to talk about promoted rates to this point because I'm afraid then everybody will do that because I said to do it. And I feel like it's got to fit your situation. It's got to fit your numbers. It's got to fit your store, but we need to understand how they work so you can understand what you afford. Do you know what you can afford if you don't know your numbers? You'll have no idea whether you can afford that promoted listing rate if you don't know your numbers. Running discounts, running sales, running coupons. Do we understand how that affects our bottom line? Do we understand, are we generating enough sales from those promotions to pay for itself? If we can't pay for our promotions, we shouldn't be running them. If we don't know that, it comes right back down to the foundation of bookkeeping. Do we have a death pile? So some people are going to argue with this. If you still have a death pile instead of running queues, you're still in stage 1. Because advanced sellers, second stage sellers don't have death piles. We have queues. So we need to understand that. We need to know how to operate a queue. If you have a death pile that you're never going to list, what are you going to do with it? Got to get rid of it somehow. Are we going to liquidate it? Are we going to donate it? We need to have a plan. But stage 1, if you have a death pile, bam, you're right back there. So are you building your listing goal future, which is a queue, right? A queue is just an organized way of saying we know how many days of inventory we have on hand. You guys will get sick of me asking you this. I think every single one of us should know exactly how many days of inventory we have on hand. If you don't, make it your goal to figure that out. And then you can tell me, and I'll be super proud of you. Shipping system that works. If we are losing items, it happens. I will say, I think it happens to everybody occasionally, but when I say occasionally, I mean like once or twice a year. If you're losing things, if you can't find things, if you're not shipping on time, if you are struggling when it's time to ship and it doesn't feel easy, I think that's a good way to sum up stage 1. When these things feel easy, then we're probably graduating to stage 2. If these things are still struggle for you, then we're in stage 1, because we need things to feel like a well-oiled machine. When we feel like things are just moving along and clicking along, we're probably graduating to the next step. Staying consistent, I think, is the number 1. Consistency and efficiency. And Carolyn absolutely summed it up beautifully yesterday when she said, we don't harp on the systems to have a contest on who can get their listings done fastest, or how we can get, we don't time ourselves and try to get more efficient as a way to bragging rights. We do it so we have more time for things like sourcing and research, mostly research, because the research has got to come before anything. If you're running yourself out of time and you never have time to research, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I feel like you need to cut back on everything else until then. That's my opinion, because I feel like if we aren't having time to research, then we aren't sourcing correctly. And if we aren't sourcing correctly, then we aren't listing correctly. It's just a big old domino effect. So build those goals, get yourself efficient, and then we can move on to stage two, which I think a lot of us are in stage two. But if you aren't, totally fine. It just gives us a reason on like, what does it mean to be a little bit more advanced reseller? So in my opinion, in stage two, we're actually like building on the business. We are building that next stage of the business. We're setting ourselves up for, the next income level. We're setting ourselves up for the next listing goals. So you have, maybe you have a little bit of help. Maybe you have a VA. Maybe you don't have a VA. Maybe you have a plan in the future on how you're going to build, whether it's alone with a spouse. You're looking for growth. We're not just looking on the getting by day-to-day stuff. We're looking on how to get to the next level. So things are easy that we talked about in stage one. Maybe now you're ready to cross post. I don't love cross posting unless you are very, very comfortable with everything in stage one on your eBay platform. If you aren't comfortable with everything in stage one on the eBay platform, do not cross post. It will add to your problems. It will solve none of them. I find people double sell things. We get confused on how it works. Just don't do it. We're spending time on the business. So when your systems are all in place and we're clicking along and we're doing great things, and you have time to actually sit and put pen to paper on the next steps. What are your goals? How are we going to get there? Maybe we are niching down and we're spending time actually thinking and focusing on our business plan for the future. Are we reinvesting on purpose with our business? Are you intentionally taking money, putting it aside for growth? Are we intentionally putting our money into different pots, so to speak? Or do we have a goal of, hey, someday I want a warehouse, someday I want to change this, and I'm putting money aside for it on purpose. So we have enough money coming in that we can make big plays in the game. So we can make a big purchase if it comes along. We're paying ourselves. That's really important. If we're on year 4 or 5 and you're full time and we're not paying ourselves, why aren't we paying ourselves? Because we should be being able to stack cash at this point. Are we working on this freedom of owning our own business, which I mean, we're not struggling as hard. Comes back to, are we taking lots of cash to the bank every week? Is our bank account going up? If our bank account is not going up, we need to figure out why, because after you're in that major growth stage, you should be able to stack some cash. So another big thing is, which I think is kind of more stage one, but do you have a well-polished SKU system? Right? Are we able to find our things? Do we know what we're doing with our SKUs? Is it easy? So I think stage two is a reflection of stage one. What can we fix to make things go easier for us, go better? Are we tracking our metrics? So this is a little more advanced. I don't want people to become involved and engulfed in spreadsheets, right? I just am not a fan of it. I think we need to have one bookkeeping system that works for us. eBay gives us great numbers. Do we know how to access the numbers in eBay? Do we know what they mean, right? We all track our service metrics together on Mondays, which is fantastic. As a group, we do that. And then that brings up, if we have questions, we can talk about it. So I absolutely think that's great. But do you know, like, okay, people's cost of goods go up month to month. If you're tracking it month to month, that's fine. People panic when their cost of goods goes up. Sometimes it's a good thing. Sometimes that means we're putting sorry, it's allergy season. Sometimes we're putting better things in our stores, so it costs us more money. But do you know why it went up? That's the big thing. Do we know our whys? So in stage two, we're able to answer the whys. If our ASP went down, but our volume went up, we know that, right? So I look at my ASP, it went down, but I sold twice as many items. Is it worth it? Can you answer these questions? If somebody came into your business and picked your business apart and was asking these questions, can you answer them? To me, that's a stage two seller. So It's really about just knowing the intricate parts of your business, because we're not worried about the foundations anymore because our foundation works. I feel like um I feel like sometimes we get worried about things that don't matter as much, or we're always trying to change things. You know, Meg's the biggest kick in my pants sometimes when I'm asking her why things aren't working, or she'll look at something of mine and she always just throws it back in my face what I tell everybody else. And I need that, right? It's fine. I need that in my life, because sometimes I'm like, and she'll be like, really? Because I feel like you wouldn't tell us that. And I'm like, she's totally right. I go backwards. I second guess myself. I try something new. And when you get to a certain stage, it's not that I'm perfect, but I don't need to try anything new. What I'm doing is working. I need to do more of that. But sometimes we get itchy and we start thinking, well, maybe I don't need to promote that high. Maybe I don't need to run that sale that works every single time. Maybe I can price a little higher. And you know what happens? My sales suffer because of it, because I know it works and I veer away from it. Bad things happen. So we all need those people in our life that aren't afraid to say, what are you doing? Like that's not the advice that you should be going on. You're going on a whim. Or we make changes because something's not working that week or that day. We get panicky. We haven't had sale today. So we start doing things that we shouldn't be doing. We are reactive. Stage 2 sellers aren't reactive. We just keep going. We just keep doing what we know we should be doing. So then you might say, well, how do we get to these areas, or how do I know where I'm at? What am I doing? So I feel like, for one, you should be able to know how comfortable you are in your business. Are you comfortable with me asking you a bunch of questions, or are you like, yeah, no, I don't want to talk about it? Are you comfortable with people taking a microscope if they came in and looked around in your business, whether it's your inventory system, your queue, your death pile, your finances, or are you hiding from it? And I've said this over and over and over, that anything we avoid in business is probably what we really need to be looking at. Because I know when things aren't going well, or I'm overspending and I know I'm overspending, what do you think I do less of? I don't really want to look at my numbers that week. I don't really want to look at my bank account that day, because I know I'm doing something wrong. So if we don't face it, we can't fix it. So if it gives you that gut punch of, I just don't really want to look at this, or you're avoiding that area, let's look at that area. I really think that's important. I also find people want to grow too fast. I'm more impatient than any of you combined. So I feel this. I understand. I want everything yesterday, and I want to see results yesterday, and it's not practical. So lots of times, I will say, don't go from 10 listings to 20 listings. Or what your listings, are they selling? What you're putting up, are you selling? Are you getting your money back out of them? Are you bulking up your store just to say you have a bigger store? That's no good, right? So are you feeling overwhelmed? Are you feeling stuck in your business? That's when we need to apply things like, do you have your systems in place? Are you profitable and organized? All those good business questions. We need to be asking ourselves those things. I see that people want to hire help way before they should be hiring help. If you're not comfortable, organized, making a profit, doing all those things, we shouldn't be worried about hiring somebody else on, because they're going to pick up our bad habits, and we're not necessarily able to train somebody if we don't have our systems in place. So I think sometimes people want to bring somebody on way too soon, right? So that's a hurdle. I feel like that knocks you back to stage 1 more than anything. We need to match our expectations to our stage, which is the whole reason that I'm talking about this. The stage you're in will dictate what kind of success you should be looking at, right? I celebrate small successes with people all the time, because that's exactly how they're going to get to the big ones. Are you still shopping on a half off day and bringing home the 4 carts? Or are you like Wagner, who has grown since the last time we talked, and he put almost all of them back because they just didn't meet his metrics? That is a notch up in the stage, right? He's moving in the right direction, because that's saying, we may not be perfect yet, but I'm sure sourcing better. And I'm conscious of it. We are all going to still make mistakes. That doesn't mean, oh, I source perfectly. Are you moving in the right direction with your sourcing? stage one isn't about being perfect. It's not about trying to figure out the easy way. It's about getting it smooth and where it feels good and feels comfortable. Stage two is about leveraging those systems. We want to be able to leverage them to make money for us. How are we going to grow? So celebrate your wins according to where you're at. But looking at other people where they're at, but trying to say, but I'm not making this much money a week and I want to make this. You look at you and then make sure that you are patting yourself on the back for the wins that you're having that are appropriate to where you're at, because it doesn't matter where anybody else is at. The bottlenecks are the same way, right? We each run into different bottlenecks depending on where we are. So I would say like the stage one type of bottlenecks would be I'm inconsistent with my listings. Some days I just don't feel like it. Some days I just don't want to. And that comes back to when I tell you to replace it with it's not important enough. And again, this is for full timers. I'm talking to you because this pays your bills. Do you enjoy having electricity? Do you enjoy eating? Do you enjoy paying your rent? Then it becomes more important and more pressing than if this is side money. But if you are just lounging around one day and you don't list, then make sure that you don't say I didn't feel like listing today. Say listing wasn't important enough to me today. You could also put that in with paying my rent isn't that important to me today, because it's the same thing. Consistency is super important. eBay thrives on consistency, and I think Poshmark does too. Being consistent gets you a long ways. It really does. Stage one, they're not tracking their profits, so then that kind of just causes all sorts of problems because you think you're making money and really you're churning lots of money. Churning money and making money are not the same thing. I feel like sometimes in live selling platforms, that's the hook they're getting into sometimes, is they churn a ton of money. Some of them are not actually making money. They're churning it. Make sure you're not churning money. Make sure we're earning money. Inventory is a mess. That's a bottleneck, right? Gotta know where our stuff's at all times. I think on stage two, which is definitely things I struggle with, is I'm getting burned out, which I'm not really getting burned out, but I'm saying people will say that to me, and I know that they are hitting that. When they say sometimes when you think you've hit your plateau, you have another gear. That is so true. And instead of when I feel like I'm getting burned out a little bit, I usually go a little harder, but that's in my personality, instead of back off. Because if I back off, do you know what's going to happen is I'm going to back off and I'm going to go backwards. I'm going to find it acceptable. And it's not acceptable to me to go backwards. So we need to do things to take care of ourselves because it's important. Life is not all about work. We have to, that's why I try to compartmentalize my days. I know I can be done and doing other things before lunchtime. And that frees me up to, if I need to take the rest of the day off from those things, I can. And, if we're going to whine about only have to work till lunchtime, well, think about the office job you're going to have. Nobody's going to care about whether what you do after lunch. You're going to be working. So at least we have a little flexibility with our time. Take time to do things that bring you joy. I'm not a joy hater. Yes, I do this 7 days a week, but it's because otherwise I become inconsistent. So we do have to still enjoy life, or why are we even doing this, right? I don't have time to grow. I hired help, but it's a mess. My income isn't going up with my listings. These are all problems we have in our growth stage and in our second stage of trying to make things work. And I see that a lot. People be like, I increased my listings. I'm listing better stuff. But I'm not making more money. What am I doing wrong? Sometimes you're not doing anything wrong. Sometimes it's just growing pains. But sometimes when we get into the second stage where we think we know what we're doing, we're making some sales, we're doing great, we start doing things like I find myself doing. I don't run that promotion like I should. I don't do my promoted listings like I should, because you start feeling special. It's a killer. It's a killer when you start finding yourself like, I don't need to do that anymore because I have this great store. Sometimes you'll find yourself backsliding. I've had it happen to me several times. It's like the kiss of death to my income sometimes. And then I have to reevaluate, and I need a little kick from people once in a while to remind me what I'm doing wrong. So I saw a quote when I was making my little list and my charts, and it said, comparison is the thief of momentum. I believe that. The minute you start comparing yourself to, whether it's a YouTuber, whether it's somebody in this group, whether it's somebody you look up to, As soon as you start comparing yourself, and that goes for anything in life. Like, why am I not there in my life? I should be here. I should be, nope, you should be exactly where you're at. But if you don't like it, we can change it, right? So I really believe this. As soon as we start comparing ourselves to others, we just stop in our tracks and it puts us back. So do the things we talked about, and then even write them down if you have to. Put in this month or this week or this day, I listed this many items. This is what my net sales were. And then track yourself. On Thursdays, we have the call at 11 o'clock Central Time that Larry usually runs, or I'm in there. One of us is in there. And we can watch it and we can see where we're at. We can see where we're going. We can see um, where our paths are, right? We can kind of chart ourselves. That's a great way to get started with that. And nobody in there, I can honestly say, nobody is comparing, nobody is judging. You could be at any stage of the game and go in there. So to wrap it up, I basically think I want you to feel comfortable in here asking stage appropriate questions, because we're all there different ways, we're in different stages, we're in different areas. Don't be afraid to ask those appropriate questions for your stage. Don't be afraid to go backwards if you need to, right? Because the further you think that you're going ahead, but you don't have your foundation set, it's going to put you backwards anyway. Harry says, on the other hand, with the right attitude, looking at others can be motivational because it can be done. Absolutely. So I usually call that admiring other resellers. I admire certain people's businesses they run. I admire their focus, their dedication, and I absolutely find that can drive me because I know it can be done. And when I know something can be done, then I know I can do it too with the right ways. So I see, and you guys all know this, every single person in here, in the group in general, I know can hit whatever milestones they want to hit with the right foundations, with the right outlook, with the right systems. And if you're just starting out, you're listening to this and you think, whoa, this is all really overwhelming. Don't let it, that's why we have to take one stage at a time. We got to take one bite at a time. We have to take one area. If you feel like you're going in all areas, but you feel like you're always stuck in one, then let's focus on that one and get you over it. That's why we meet in the mornings, so we can talk about those things. On Thursday mornings at when we meet at 8 a.m. Central Time in the 3499 room, these are things we can talk about. We can talk about why are you stuck? What are you stuck in? And then you have a water cooler of your coworkers. They can give you these ideas. You know why? Because we've all been there. If you've gone through it, you've been there. And then you have a whole bunch of people that can tell you, look, this is what got me through this. My struggle lately was that I started dreading taking photos. My least favorite part of the whole eBay process is taking photos. And I think it's just because it feels mundane to me. I don't really have to think. I don't have to process anything. So lately, instead of saying I'm going to do 25 or 30 photos, which is I usually do sets in 30, I've started doing I'm going to set a timer and I'm going to take as many picture sets in an hour as I can. Because I know in an hour, I'm perfectly capable of doing my 25 or 30 listing, my 25 or 30, and that's photos and drafts. So that's just getting a draft started with the pictures I take. So I know I can get my 25 or 30 done in an hour, but I'm a little bit of a competitive person. So if I know I only have an hour to get all my pictures done for the day, I don't let distractions get to me and I go as hard as I can for that hour. Because then what? What if I only have 15 done? Do I only get to do 15 listings tomorrow because I try to stay a day ahead? And then it's going to hurt me, right? I'm going to go backwards, and I don't want to go backwards. So I found out that if I just say it, because I also think I only have to do this for an hour. If I do it to the best of my ability, I'm done in an hour. So I found that that's really helped me. I agree, Lynn. Lynn says listening to a podcast while she's doing her photography. I do that too. I reward myself a little bit when I'm doing it because it's just, boy, it just feels like it's I don't know what my problem is. I just feel like in quicksand sometimes doing all those pictures. So for me, it's making a game out of it, making a competition out of it has worked for me. You got to find what works for you because what works for me may not work for you. That's also what we do in the Thursday morning call, at the 8 a.m. call, because other people may have a trick that, we haven't thought of, and it might help you get through whatever stage you're struggling into. So I know this is all stuff we've talked about. I just kind of wanted to package it together And I just like people to revisit in the fact that, like, what stage am I in? Even though there's like one or two, I feel like there's a pretty defined line of when we're still doing those things, and then when we're ready to explode our growth, or when we're really ready to take the next step. I was talking to I think it was Russell yesterday. It was some people here after the call yesterday. The stage between $100,000 gross for me and 200,000 gross, huge. And of course that is a lot of money, right? But there's just a different, it was a whole shift for me, and it's hard, really hard. That second 100,000 was harder for me to move towards than the first, right? And so to me, that's a stage 2 growth issue, is when we really start hitting those shifts. So we're going to struggle. We're all going to struggle at different stages. We're all going to struggle at different times. And that's why we have this group, is to lean on each other and to help each other. So I appreciate that. I'm going to stop this recording, and then I'll restart it for the Patreon group only so that we can chat here.